Decoloniality theory was used for analyses of Latin America, but over the past decade it has gone global. Zimbabwean historian Sabelo Ndlovu-Kasheni uses the concepts and theses of decoloniality theory in analyses of African societies. The Indian jurist J. Sai Deepak, similarly in India. Martina Klostanova, a Russian gender studies scholar, has applied it to former Soviet states. And those scholars, like Mignolo, on whose writings they continually draw, pay particular attention to what they call the coloniality of knowledge. And that stands for an oppressive exclusionary hierarchy in the realm of ideas and beliefs, mirroring the oppressive exclusionary hierarchy in the realm of human beings, picked out by Quijano's concept of coloniality of power. In the sphere of social, political, labour relations, decoloniality asserts the equality of all persons and aims to overthrow the coloniality of power. In the cultural and epistemic sphere, given that, as Ndlovu-Kasheni puts it, all human beings were born into legitimate knowledge systems, decoloniality theorists assert that, quote, the ultimate goal, decolonially speaking, is to put all onto epistemic traditions in a non-dominant and equal position. Now, as they've elaborated their theory of the coloniality of knowledge, theorists of decoloniality have come to embrace two distinct forms of standpoint epistemology, corresponding with two distinct dimensions of differentiation among persons. So with standpoint epistemology generally, you identify an epistemically advantaged, socially situated perspective, as Elizabeth Anderson puts it. And Elizabeth Anderson, American philosopher, notes that standpoint theories usually claim that the perspective of subordinated social groups have an epistemic advantage regarding politically contested topics related to their subordination, relative to the perspectives of the groups that dominate them. That describes the first form of standpoint epistemology embraced by decoloniality theorists. So theorists of decoloniality think that those who are classed as inferior and subordinated by the coloniality of power tends to have more insight into the functioning of global and local power hierarchies. So, for example, Mignolo says about Partha Chatterjee, what Foucault did not have was the colonial experience and political interest propelled by the colonial wound that allowed Chatterjee to feel and see beyond both Kant and Foucault. And there are many other instances of claims like that. But decoloniality theory's second form of standpoint epistemology arises from its approach to the coloniality of knowledge. Decoloniality theory holds that, in Ndlovu-Kasheni's formulation, all of us were born into knowledge systems, and all of these knowledge systems are, quote, valid and legitimate. All sources of knowledge are valid within their historical, cultural, and social context, he says. This applies also to Western knowledges, such as the Kantian legacy, as long as, in Mignolo's words, it is reduced to its proper localism and stripped of its imperial/global pretensions. What is unacceptable is, in Ndlovu-Kasheni's words, universalizing Western particularism, or indeed any claim from anywhere in the world to have discovered propositions which are true outright, true no matter where they are believed or by whom. And Quijano himself came round to that way of thinking. Later in his career said nothing is less rational finally than the pretension that the specific cosmic vision of a particular ethne should be taken as universal rationality. Okay. Those two forms of standpoint epistemology differ not just as regards which socially situated perspectives they fix on, but also as regards what epistemic status they attribute to the propositions known or believed from the epistemically advantaged vantage point. The first form attributes different degrees of insight into power hierarchies to individuals based on what side of the colonial difference they fall on, i.e. roughly speaking, whether they are classed as white or European, or Asian or African, or indigenous Latin American, and so forth. The second form hinges not on the colonial difference, but on the various ethne-specific knowledges, for example, African modes of knowing, Andean cosmologies, the Spaniards' concept of time, all quotes from decoloniality theorists, which pre-existed the coloniality of power and may yet outlast it. Then, while the insights about global power hierarchies attributed to those on the receiving end of the coloniality of power by the first form of standpoint epistemology are presented as true across the board, after all, they are meant to be the same insights about coloniality as decoloniality theorists put forward in their own voice. The ethne-specific knowledges attributed to different geographical identity groups by the second form of standpoint epistemology, are presented as true only in a qualified fashion, true relative to a particular cultural and social context, or their proper localism, as Mignolo likes to say. That qualified epistemic status, truth relative to a geographical identity group, is what Mignolo calls truth in parenthesis, or also pluriversality. In decoloniality theory's pluriversal world, some propositions, quote, are valid for Westerners, that's from Mignolo, but not for others. And presumably, also Mignolo's discussion, Andean time, as he puts it, is valid for Andeans, but not for Westerners who have, as Mignolo asserts, Western time. So contemporary decoloniality theory combines, firstly, an objectivism about the global history and sociology of racialized power relations, into which it holds those, quote, socially located on the oppressed side of the colonial difference to possess superior insight, with, secondly, a relativism about, quote, knowledges and worldviews, or cosmologies, or epistemologies, which it holds to be valid for, but not beyond, the, quote, proper localism of a geographical identity group. Spanish, Andean, African, Euro-American, they're not very consistent often with the labels, or what Quijano calls an ethnie. Theorists of decoloniality highlight the first point, the objectivism about the global history and sociology of power, as what makes their approach different from post-colonial theories and superior to it. Mignolo says, while post-colonial theorists are concerned with dismantling meta-narratives, or maybe I should say with dismantling meta-narratives, decolonial theorists push forward an analysis, a meta-narrative, predicated on questions of power, epistemology, and ontology. But really, I think the tension between that objectivism and the relativism is a severe structural weakness in decoloniality theory, and I'm now not the only person to think that. So their correct assertion, I'm saying in my own voice, correct assertion that the race hierarchy thesis is outright false, sits uncomfortably beside decolonialist theorists' assertion that the same thesis, the race hierarchy thesis, is part of Western or Euro-American epistemology, and thus presumably true or valid relative to that geographical identity group. It remains unclear relative to which geographical identity group decoloniality theory's master narrative of the coloniality of power is presented as true. If it is outright or objectively true, it follows that when this master narrative features in the knowledges and worldviews attributed to different geographical identity groups, those can be outright or objectively true to that extent, which contradicts their relativism. So this structural tension in decoloniality theory's architecture exists, I would think, because Quijano developed his account of the coloniality of power within the objectivist universalist framework of Marxist dependency theory, while the account of the coloniality of knowledge overlaid upon it by Mignolo, and others, with Quijano's endorsement later in his career, takes for granted a framework of postmodernist relativism.